I want to ask everybody, have you ever felt utterly lost? Yep. And I'm not just talking about, I don't know where I'm going. I'm in a new part of town. You know where you are. I can be absolutely lost in Moncton and still know that I'm in New Brunswick. And still have a general idea of what part of the province I'm in. But when I say lost, I mean you don't know anything about the next step you need to take, where you need to go, who you need to talk to, what you need to do. And I think we've all been there in one place or another in our lives. For me, it was right after high school. I was dating this girl who was a year or two younger than me, and I graduated. I didn't want to go off to college because I wanted to be closer to her, so I took a job that I didn't like. It was a little bit of work that I wasn't really thrilled about. It was a lot of night shifts, but it gave me my weekends off so I could be with this girl. A year passed, she graduates, and she goes off to college, and I find myself in the same situation. I need to keep this job that I don't like because it gives me the time off on the weekends so that I can go and be with her. And the second year of her university comes around. I'm tracking along with this same job, and she calls me up one morning, and that was actually the morning of our 3rd year anniversary, and breaks up with me over the phone. And all of a sudden I'm lost. And I mean that I didn't know anything about my life anymore. I didn't know where to go, I didn't know who to talk to, and it was all because of that one action. Suddenly, the job I was in, for the reasons that I was in it, made no sense. I hated it, and the worst part was I'd been there for 2 years, and it didn't make sense for me to leave all of a sudden. I mean, that kind of stuff looks awful on your resumes when you just up and leave for no reason when you've been working there for 2 years. I couldn't go to college because all my friends had left 2 years before. I was out of the education system, and you forget stuff over time. And I didn't feel like I could make a successful attempt at going back into college. And I couldn't fall back on any of my friends because my friends had all either moved away to pursue their careers or had gone to college or university. Even my family seemed to have spread apart now that all the boys had graduated. We had all sort of gone to different parts of the country. I didn't have this girl in my life anymore, so I didn't even have somebody to comfort me in that sense, and I was utterly lost. And that's what I mean. Have you ever felt like that? Maybe you're here tonight and you're in a similar boat, and you're currently in a relationship where you're lost. There's something to fix in the relationship, or there's something that's just not working. Maybe you don't know what to do to fix it. Maybe you don't know what to do to end it. But in one way, you're lost in that relationship. Maybe it's something a little more tangible. Maybe it's your finances, your money. Maybe at the end of the month, you're looking at all the bills that are piling up and the stuff that this culture says you need to have in order to be happy. And none of it makes sense. Like you just don't have enough money at the end of the month to do that, and you feel like you're lost with it. You don't know how to make that sort of situation work. Maybe you're in the same boat as me when it came to a job. Maybe you're at a job now, or you're in school, or you're trying to further your life goals, but it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't look like it's making a difference. You sit at your desk, or you go to school, and you just wonder, why am I here? What is this actually doing? What's the real purpose behind this? Why am I feeling lost in this situation? Maybe you're like me and you've got kids, and you think you got a handle on something, and then they throw a curveball at you like you never thought you'd expect. If any of you know Seamus, he's full of curveballs. One of the more recent ones with him is we'll be driving in the car, and I don't know, Wrecking Ball will come on from Miley Cyrus, and he'll start singing along, and I just don't know how to deal with that, and just shut that right down. But I mean, You think you have a handle on it, and all of a sudden something happens that comes completely surprising you, and you're lost. Maybe it's just a combination of things that you're pursuing in your life. It could be the people you hang out with. It could be the social media that you follow. It could be drinking. It could be drugs. It could be spending money. It could be saving too much money. It could be anything. Traveling, shopping, being more angry, being more pitiful, to other people. Doesn't matter what it is, you don't find any happiness in it and you feel lost. Whichever it is, it leaves you feeling the same way. It leaves you feeling like you don't know what you're supposed to do next. You don't know what your calling in that situation is supposed to be, and you're lost. And you feel like you're all alone. Now, when we feel like that, we usually end up doing what we think is right in the moment. And we're not the first ones to do that. The nation of Israel did that through the period of the Judges. If you read that book, you'll find this phrase repeated a few times. It says, "In those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in his own eyes." Now, everyone doing what's right in their own eyes doesn't really sound bad at first. I mean, if I do what I think is right, and Timmy does what he thinks is right, and Doug does what he thinks is right, I mean, we should all be able to get along, right? But if you take a look back through history, if you take a look back through even the Bible, human beings do not have, a good history of being consistently moral. We don't have those good moral standards as a race. There was a movie put out a long time ago, Men in Black, and Tommy Lee Jones has this really good line that sums it all up. He says, "A person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it." And he's right. You put more than one of us in a situation, or more than one of us in the same area, and leave us to our own devices, and it gets bad. It gets bad quick. Israel was doing some horribly sinful things by any standard throughout the book of Judges. There's stories of murder, of rape, of sacrificing children, there's this one story about this guy who cuts apart a prostitute and sends the pieces of the body to other parts of the country to send a message. I mean, this is horribly sinful stuff, but it was right in their eyes. So Israel looks around and they're just as lost as any of us could feel, and they say, okay, what's going to fix this? And they take a look around at all their neighbors and they say, they all have kings. That's what we need. We need someone to lead us, to tell us what to do because we're doing the wrong stuff. And the only real leadership they had at that time, the prophets, they say, no, this isn't a good idea. That God is supposed to be your king. You don't want a king that is a man. It's not going to fix this. But they persist. And God gives them their way, saying that it's not the prophets that they're rejecting, that it's God that Israel is rejecting. So God gives them some kings. The first king was Saul, a warrior king, saves the Israelites from the Philistines, all the way up until Goliath. Now we all know the story of David and Goliath, and here we have Saul at the point of losing his power, losing his nation, and the thought of losing power drives him insane to the point of insanity. There really is no other word for it. He gets saved by somebody like nobody else could hope for. David comes in and saves Israel, and then he tries to kill him. That's insane. I'm sorry. But like most politicians, that's what happens when you get threatened to lose your power. But David comes in as the second king, and he's a man after God's own heart. He slays Goliath, turns the nation of Israel around. Every time you look around, David is connecting with God, praying with God. Like Heidi said in the Psalms, he's all over the place, but he's always focused on God. God makes a promise to David. In 2 Samuel, he says, Your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me, and your throne shall be established forever. Now we take a look down through the list of David's descendants. Dozens of generations go by. Israel goes through a line of failed kings, one after another, more selfish kings. They're eventually exiled into Babylon, and all the while the prophets are saying there is going to be this new king come, who will be a descendant of David. We see two descendants of David, Mary and Joseph, and they have a baby named Jesus. Now, Jesus is fully man. We've been through that. We know that he was human in every way that mattered to us. He faced all the things that mattered to us, but at the same time, he was fully God, and he knew what we needed. In Jesus, we see God taking his place as king. When he was crucified, he had a sign above his head that said, King of the Jews. He died to save us from all these sins, but he didn't stay dead like all the other kings would eventually die. See, the problem with human kings is that they eventually die, or they eventually corrupt, or they eventually fail. We need a fail-proof king. And Jesus wasn't becoming king by some sort of divine loophole. He fulfilled it exactly like they prophesied it. He was a descendant of David from the Old Testament. He was the coming Messiah with authority to heal and to forgive. And he lived a life in a way that contrasted all the other kings to show that he was different, that he was this one special king. He lived as a selfless servant to the point of death instead of the selfless kings or selfish kings that they had seen. But why did he come? He didn't come just to forgive us. I think he could have done that from heaven. And he didn't come just to be with us for that short time. And I don't think he even came just to free us from the things that keep our lives bound. He came to lead us in the life we were supposed to be, to lead us as a king is supposed to lead us. Now, what this means is that in the different areas of our life, we have to let God lead us in our relationships. It means letting God lead us to a partner, someone who is going to complement the work he has for us, not just somebody who matches our personality, not just someone we can get along with. It means that following Jesus' commands on how we treat that person, how we honor that person. It means focusing on him and not letting any other distractions get in the way. There's a really good, I don't know if it's Instagram or picture floating around, and it says, run as fast as you can towards God. And if someone can keep up, introduce yourself. And I think that it's funny, but it's also true. If I'm running as fast as I can towards God and someone's keeping up, God has obviously put them on the same path. It means waiting for the right person in our life and not focusing on, I've got to get this person before my life moves to the next chapter. God will bring it in time. And it also means that if it's not right, if that person in your life is working against God, it means learning to remove that distraction from your life, even if it's painful. When it comes to our money, if Jesus is our king, we need to let him lead us on how we use it. We need him to give us direction when we are unsure or scared about which way to go or what to spend our time and our effort and our money on. It means realizing that the money and the things that we gain in this life are only tools. They're all his. My paycheck is not my paycheck. My paycheck is the resource God gives me to do my work. It was all his. I'm afraid I can't remember the verse, but it says that all the things in the world are his, all the sheep, all the cattle on the mountainsides, all of that is God's. We give these things back to him, not because he wants them, but because we are grateful for it. When it comes to our purpose or our job or our schooling, Jesus wants to lead us there because he wants us to use our gifts and the tools he gives us to make this world more like his kingdom. Doing work that builds up his better kingdom, and doing it in a way that makes people think highly of him. We should be the Jesus in our workplace. We should be the Jesus in our schools. We should be the Jesus in our community, so that when people see him in us, it leads them to him again. And how will they hear the good news if we keep silent day in and day out about it? It doesn't matter if what job we're in or what school we're in, if we're there for Jesus. It doesn't matter if we don't like where we're at, if we're doing God's work while we're there. We have a responsibility that all of those that can be reached are reached. That all of those that can be loved and helped are loved and helped. And this kind of bleeds into what we do with our kids. We have to be responsible for our kids. We need to be that influence in their lives, so that when we're not around, or when we can't lead them, they know what God's influence is like, because they see it in us. He wants to lead our kids just like he wants to lead us. And I think it's absolutely crucial that they see that relationship between us and God, so that when they experience God, it's familiar to them. And they say, hey, this is what mom and dad have. It was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life when I walked outside with my son the first time he saw dandelions, and he thanked God for the dandelions because they were pretty, because he had seen me thank God for something that was beautiful. I said, wow, that is a really beautiful day out. Let's thank God for this beautiful day. And now here's my son thanking God for something like dandelions. In our everyday lives, we need a king to lead us, to show us what things will just bring us down, what things aren't worth it, and what things will actually build us up. And what things, despite their pain, despite their difficulty, we need to get rid of, or we need to invest in. We need to see these things from Jesus, so that we can see who we were meant to be. And he also wants to give us focus, so that when we hear the lies that the enemy tells us, that you're not good enough unless you have this job, or that you're not worth anything unless you have these things, that we can recognize them as what they are, lies. We need someone to lead us through all the confusion, the temptation. We need him to guide us. Otherwise, we're liable to slip into all the same bad habits that humans get into over the course of history. Maybe you're here and you hear all these good things, and you want that. You want those good things in your life, but you're having trouble with the whole God is my king. God is the ultimate authority in my life. And I want you to hear a parable that Jesus told his disciples from Matthew. It's Matthew 21, 33 to 44, if anyone wants to dig it out. But he says, "Hear another parable. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, and dug a wine press in it, and built a tower, and leased it to tenants, and went into another country. When the season for fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants to get his fruit. And when the tenants took his servants, they beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants more than the first, and they did the same thing to them. Finally, he sent his son, saying, 'They will respect my son.' But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and have his inheritance.' And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. When therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants?' And they said to him, 'He will put those wretches to a miserable death, and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him his fruits in their season.' Jesus said to them, 'Have you never read in the scriptures, the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? This was the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes.' Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to people producing its fruits. And the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces, and when it falls on anyone, it'll crush him. Now, I don't say that, I don't read that to scare anybody. I don't say it to force you into anything, but you need to understand the reality of it, that God is our king, which means he gets everything. He doesn't get just our Sundays, he doesn't get just our collection, he doesn't just get our volunteer time when we're ready to give it up. He's given us this life and wants to lead us in it the way a king should lead his people. He set the example for us when he came as a human being and showed us what to do. Human beings need leadership. And like I said, when we're alone or when we're left to our own devices, we really don't have a good history of getting it together, but at the same time, we were made to be in community. So that means we need somebody to lead us. Human kings, human leaders will always die, will always fade. But God is the only eternal king. He's the only one who's not going to go away, who's not going to stop, who's not going to waver in his commitment to us. He wants to lead us, but if you don't want to follow him, you will not have a part in his kingdom. It'll be your loss, and you will continue to lose. And you will continue to be lost. We need Jesus as our king. We have a little bit of homework up here. I think there's a slide. Out of those categories that I gave, the relationships, the money, the purpose, your job, you could even throw schooling into that, your kids and your lifestyle. If any of those are not right with God right now, I want you to write down those scriptures. In fact, it may not even be a bad idea to write them all down and keep them handy, so that when you're running into problems with your relationship, you can turn somewhere. But I want you to write down those scriptures and go home and read it every day. Read it and follow it until it's in line with Jesus as your king. The Bible is the clearest expression of his leading that we have. It's the closest thing we have to a face-to-face conversation with God outside of God actually coming down and speaking to us. We need to begin to read it every day. Even if it's 10 minutes, even if it's just in the morning while you're getting ready, even if it's on the way to work in the car, you put it on an audio book or whatever. We need to get into his word. We need him to lead us, because without it, we are just as lost. We're just pretending. He wants to lead us, and you need him. So it's time to get our directions. Let me pray for you guys. Father, thank you for choosing to be our King. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for being that eternal presence, that leadership that we need. Thank you for these people that have come here today to hear your word. And I pray that you lay a passion on their heart as they leave today. I pray that the Bible becomes our instruction manual for life from now on. I pray that we take it seriously and we take it literally, that it is your word, and this is how we get our directions. This is how you lead us. Keep us all safe until we return next week. In Jesus' name, amen.